Hey, it's Terry, Virginia's daughter, and today I'm going to talk to you about McCALL'S 7624. This pattern is a dress pattern that I have constructed a total of 4 times now. I made 2 of view A, 1 of view C, and 1 of view D without the tie-ins because I don't particularly care for tie-ins. I'll start off by saying that the instructions are very well written. The illustrations are great. The pattern itself is not difficult to construct. I had mentioned in the last video that there were some parts of this pattern that were confusing to me, and I can summarize that for you. So it's all about view B. View B has a lace overlay. And because I was making view A and B have the same bodice, the instructions are the same, except that every time they mention view B, they would say that you had to attach the wrong side of the contrast fabric to the right side of the front band. Initially, it starts off by talking about views A and B for the bodice and the waistband. That's step 2. And then step 3 talks about view B only. So I'm scanning the instructions to see view A again, but I never do. By the time I get to step, step 9, it starts talking about views C and D. And I'm like, wait a minute. So of course I had to go back. Well, what I did not realize is that view B has a lace overlay. So of course you'd have to treat that a little bit differently because you'd have to put the wrong side of the lace to the right side of the band. So the view B says pin wrong side of contrast to right side of each interface front waistband pattern number 2. And I'm like, contrast? Like, you don't have to do that just for contrast fabric. Why would you pin the wrong side of contrast fabric to the right side? I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Just that little wording threw me for the hugest loop. That was the first thing. So then we go on, we construct the bodice very nicely. And then we get to the armhole edges for view A, which there was no problem there. And then we start with the skirt. The skirt is like steps 36 through 40. The dress is hemmed early on in step 36. I don't know if I skipped these steps, but in this dress for sure, I did not put the elastic in. And I think 2 of them I didn't because I don't remember seeing that step. Let me see. Well, no, my first dress does have elastic in it. The second one does not, and the third one does not. Okay, so the 2 middle dresses don't, and I'll show you the insides of these in a minute. Getting back to the instructions, so the band is where it gets a little confusing as well. But again, it's only because of the lace overlay. Now, there are 2 bands. There's a band that you construct with a slit, and there's a band that you don't have a slit. The 2 longer versions, views D and B, actually have slits in the front band. Views A and C do not. So there's 2 different types of instruction, obviously, for whichever band you select. Step 41 starts the band. Views 41 through 45 is if you're constructing the band without the slit. 41 talks about B only because you have to put that lace on top of your fashion fabric. And the front band is hemmed in step 46. It's the same with the neck facing. And when I went back and looked, I noticed that view B is just separated out for each instruction that you have an overlay. So you can overlay the neck band, the front band, and the waistband. That's that. Altogether, this pattern only has like 15 pieces total. The very last step of the dress is attaching the neck and front band to the dress. It's a very, very, very nice dress pattern, and I would highly recommend it. So let's take a look at my creations. This is the first dress that I made. And this is this African print fabric that I got from a local vendor. This came from Joann Fabrics. And I will admit that I like the way that this looks together, that this mix pulled together. I know it's not for everybody, but I like it. In the last video where I talked about the last 2 dresses that I made from this pattern that were in my unfinished projects, I mentioned that I was very careful about making sure that the waistband lined up directly across the front band. What I would do is when I had this pinned, I would flip it on the outside and just kind of measure it up to see if it measured and then make any adjustments. So hit this and this. So let's see how we did. Let's see how I did. Another area that I wanted to be sure, there's just the slightest little point here. I know it's small, but I wanted to make sure that that matched up. Let's see how I did here. I did add the sleeve bands on this one because it's the kimono style. Let's take a look at the inside. I'm always interested in how to finish seams on the inside. I don't necessarily like serging all the time. And I'm gonna have to do a little research on some seam finishes. Oh, I can see I put this little trim here to kind of finish the seam. The rest of the seams are pinked. I pinked them with pinking shears. How do you feel about that? Drop comments below. How do you feel about seams being finished with pinking shears? I think it's perfectly fine. I'm curious to know what you think. This band is supposed to be slip stitched on the inside, but I didn't do that for this one. I just stitched it because I wanted to get it done. All right, so that's the first one that I made from this pattern. Hang that right there. This is the second one. This fabric came from Mood Fabrics, and it's just a really lightweight cotton. I'll have to scan this thing for strings. And same thing here. Let's see how I did on the Let me look at it first before I show it to you. And then the top part here, it's hard to see that, but I don't think that's that bad either. Let's take a look at this one on the inside. This one is slip stitched. This is also pinked. I pinked the seams, in other words. I did not put any binding on this one. Obviously gotta press this. I got some parts of the seams are going down and some parts are going up. Get with it, Terry. And I do have to do some more ironing on these, I'm for sure. Definitely this one. Make sure I press that out some more. Here I begin to talk about the last two projects that I completed recently in round 3 of my unfinished projects. The purple one was nearly complete with the exception of the front band and the neck band, and the green one had not been sewn at all. It was just cut out. I decided that I would get both dresses to the same point, which would be step 54 in the pattern instructions. It's the next to the last step. There are 55 steps in the instructions. The last one is to slip stitch the inside of the front band and then just pick it up from there and just apply both the neck band and front band to both dresses. Let's take a look at how this turned out, the front band to waistband lineup. And now if we take a look at the neckline, you can see that there is no change of direction on the left side, just on the right side. And so yeah, that wasn't intentional, but that's how that turned out. It's a very small detail, but it's a noticeable one, I think. Now I'm going to have a look at the inside. What I'm talking about here is the fact that I did not slip stitch this front band either. So there was only one dress that I actually slip stitched a front band. The other ones are just machine stitched. I decided to apply seam binding to all the seams of this dress, and I have to admit I love the way this turned out. It gives it a really nice, clean, somewhat elegant finish, and I like it. I did not put elastic in this one, and I am well pleased with how this turned out. I purchased this fabric at Hancock Fabric when I made a trip to Indiana one year, and that's it for this dress. So this would be the third item completed from this pattern, McCall 7624. Final item, of course, is the green dress, and this is an Ankara print that I got from a local vendor. Let's take a look at this front band to waistband lineup. Again, with the print, you can hardly see it, but it looks good. It looks good. I like the way it turned out. This is a very lightweight cotton, by the way. Now this V-neck here, this neckline here, there's no change of direction whatsoever. I had to eliminate it. It gave me a little problem. I couldn't get it to work out evenly, so I just took it out. I did decide to go ahead and serge all these seams. And again, it's not my favorite look, but it's fine. It works just fine. So there you have it, my experience with McCall 7624. Would I recommend this pattern? Yes, I would. As a matter of fact, I say if you have it, take it out, cut it out, and stitch it up. Would I make this again? I probably would make it again. I thought about trying view B just for the lace overlay. I don't think I like that keyhole sleeve. I don't know. I think that's kind of played out, right? Or outdated or whatever you call it. I like view C because view C, it's a serious mixture of prints going on there. So the bodice is one print, the skirt is a different print, and even still the bands are a different print. So I like that. I'd even consider making one with the tie-ins because just because I don't like them doesn't mean everyone doesn't like them. How would I rate the pattern? You know, that's kind of difficult. I think if you can comprehend instructions, you should be okay. You're not inserting any zippers. You don't have to apply any, buttons. I think a beginner could do this pattern. I think so. I think they learn a lot. One thing I would have to do though, so if I were going to use this pattern to make garments to sell, then I would have to trace this pattern, probably buy a new one and just trace all the sizes and do it that way. And speaking of things to sell, I've just been trying to kind of get in my head the kinds of things that I can sew relatively quickly and still be very nice. And this dress I could do that with. I hope you enjoyed this video. That's it for this time. So until next time, take care.